There's something chilling about the way legends fall. The swinging 60s gave us more than just unforgettable hits. It also served up a list of pop icons who checked out in ways that still defy explanation. Was it bad luck, dark secrets, or something more sinister lurking behind the velvet curtain? Ever wonder why some stars shine bright, then vanish in a cloud of rumors? Stick around, because the stories behind these mysterious deaths will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about fame. Brian Jones. He was the original face of the Rolling Stones, a whirlwind of charisma, scandal, and musical genius. Brian Jones didn't just play guitar, he reinvented the sound of British rock, and then, almost overnight, he was gone. On July 3, 1969, at only 27, Jones was found motionless at the bottom of his own swimming pool. The coroner called it death by misadventure, pointing to drugs and alcohol, but even now, fans and friends raise their eyebrows at that label. Witnesses that night described a tense atmosphere at Jones's country estate, with new owners and old friends clashing. Some claimed to hear shouting. Others swore there were bruises that didn't match the story. Over the decades, conspiracy theories have multiplied like wildflowers. Was Brian pushed? Did he see something he shouldn't have? Or did a spiral of fame and pressure finally pull him under? Even the Sussex police re-examined the case in 2009, but came up empty-handed. The mystery of Brian Jones's death has only grown with time, and every Stones fan has their own theory. One thing's certain: when Brian went under, he took more than a few secrets with him, and the world lost a legend whose influence can still be heard on the radio today. Sam Cooke, the voice of "A Change Is Gonna Come," was silenced in a burst of violence that no one saw coming. Sam Cooke was more than a soul singer. He was an architect of modern music, a pioneer who broke barriers on and off the stage. But on December 11, 1964, Cooke was shot dead at the Hacienda Motel in Los Angeles, sending shockwaves through the music world. The motel manager claimed she fired in self-defense, saying Cooke burst into her office in a rage. The official story was that he was robbed, then lost control, but Sam's friends and family never bought it. They pointed to missing money, vanished clothing, and details that just didn't add up. Rumors flew. Was it a setup, a mob hit, or something more personal? The LAPD closed the case fast, ruling it justifiable homicide, but whispers of a deeper plot have never faded. Even decades later, the public is divided. Was Sam Cooke a victim of random chaos, or was he targeted because of who he was and what he represented? One thing's for sure: his music never stopped, but the full truth behind his death might never be heard. Bobby Fuller, the man behind the classic "I Fought the Law," lived his lyrics in a way no one expected. Bobby Fuller was just 23 when he was found dead outside his Hollywood apartment in July 1966. He was slumped in his car, face battered, body soaked with gasoline. The police waffled between calling it a suicide or an accident, but that didn't fly with anyone who knew Bobby. The timing was strange. Bobby was on the verge of national stardom, his career skyrocketing. His family and bandmates were quick to note bruises and injuries inconsistent with a simple overdose or accident. The story went from weird to downright ominous when rumors surfaced about Bobby's brushes with the darker side of the music business, bad deals, threats, and possible ties to organized crime. Fans have spent years piecing together clues: missing autopsy photos, conflicting statements, shady business partners. Was Bobby trying to break free from a controlling contract, or did he stumble into something he couldn't walk away from? The questions outnumber the answers, and each retelling only adds another layer of doubt. In the end, Bobby Fuller's last ride is a classic cold case, unsolved, unforgettable, and as haunting as the chorus of his biggest hit, Johnny Kidd. In the early 1960s, Johnny Kidd was a trailblazer for British rock, strutting on stage with his signature eye patch and storming the charts with "Shakin' All Over." But in 1966, Kidd's life took a turn straight out of a whodunit. He died in a car crash on a dark English road, leaving behind a wave of grief and a heap of questions. At first glance, it seemed like a tragic accident: cars, speed, and a slippery night. But those who knew Johnny never stopped poking at the details. Friends reported that Kid was unusually anxious in the days before his death. Rumors suggested the crash wasn't as straightforward as the official report claimed. Some speculated about mechanical tampering, while others whispered about conflicts behind the scenes of the music industry. Johnny Kid's mysterious demise hasn't captured headlines the way some rock tragedies have, but it's always there, lingering like a ghost note in one of his songs. What's clear is that rock and roll lost a true original that night, and the story of Johnny Kid's final hours has become one of the genre's great unsolved riddles, left to echo in every club where bands still belt out his anthems. Otis Reading. Otis Reading's voice could melt stone, and so could the shock when news broke that he'd died in a plane crash on December 10, 1967. The King of Soul was just 26, riding the crest of Dock of the Bay, a song that would become his biggest hit only after his passing. The crash, near a frigid lake in Wisconsin, wiped out almost his entire band. The official cause was pinned on bad weather and a poorly maintained plane, but fans never stopped asking questions. Why did such a promising star, with so much going right, board a rickety old beechcraft on a dangerous day? Why was there so little investigation into what went wrong? There were oddities, too: vague radio messages before the crash, last-minute changes to the passenger list, and mechanical problems that had reportedly plagued the aircraft for weeks. In the aftermath, stories sprouted like weeds. Some claimed sabotage, others suspected a push from jealous rivals, or even sabotage for financial gain. There's no hard evidence, but the mystery lingers. Why did Otis Redding's journey end on that icy lake, at the very moment his career was set to explode? The world lost a legend, and the full story of his last flight remains as soulful and unresolved as his music. Tammy Terrell. Tammy Terrell's voice was the magic ingredient in Motown's golden age. Nobody harmonized with Marvin Gaye quite like her. "Ain't No Mountain High Enough" became the soundtrack to a generation, but Tammy's own mountain proved impossible to climb. At just 24, Terrell died after a long battle with brain tumors in 1970. On paper, it was tragic, but straightforward. In reality, her passing left fans with a list of unsettling questions. Terrell's health collapsed on stage, and rumors quickly swirled about what really caused her illness. Some insiders whispered about physical abuse from men in her life, arguing the trauma contributed to her condition. Others suggested medical mismanagement or pointed fingers at Motown itself for pushing her too hard, too young. To this day, debate rages about whether her death could have been prevented if someone had intervened sooner. The music industry has a way of burying secrets, and Tammy Terrell's story is no exception. Her death remains a sharp reminder of just how fragile a star's life can be and how quickly brilliance can be dimmed by the pressures and dangers of the spotlight. Fans still wonder, did Tammy's tragic fate have more to it than the headlines revealed? Eddie Cochran. Eddie Cochran was rock and roll's wild card, a 21-year-old guitar hero who brought rebellion to every note of summertime blues. In 1960, while touring England, Cochran's ride came to a sudden, violent end in a late-night car crash. He was the only fatality, while his friends, including fellow rocker Gene Vincent, survived with injuries. Authorities blamed a tire blowout, a slippery road, and too much speed. Still, something about the story never felt settled. Why was Eddie, the most famous passenger, seated in the most dangerous spot? Why was the car packed with gear, crammed to the roof on a night with treacherous weather? Some fans pointed to rumors of a mysterious white car that tailed them before the accident. Others focused on Cochran's own nerves. He'd voiced worries about the trip, almost as if he'd had a premonition. Then there's the fact that Cochran's death echoed the dark tradition of rock stars dying young, as if the road itself was cursed. Theories have spun for decades, but there's no clear villain, just an eerie sense that the crash was no ordinary accident. Eddie Cochran left behind more questions than answers and a blueprint for rebellion that still rattles the speakers today. Rudy Lewis. The Drifters' smooth sound defined early 60s pop, but tragedy shadowed their success. Rudy Lewis, the soaring tenor behind Up on the Roof and On Broadway, was found dead in his Harlem apartment in May 1964, just hours before a big recording session. Officially, it was ruled a drug overdose, but those closest to Rudy were never convinced. For starters, friends insisted Rudy avoided hard drugs and had no history of reckless behavior. Some pointed out the eerie timing. His death came on the eve of one of the group's most important projects. Others noticed how quickly the case was closed, with few questions asked by investigators. Was it just the stress of the spotlight, or did someone have a reason to silence Rudy at his peak? Rumors of foul play, secret battles, and backstage rivalries have swirled for decades, fueling speculation and heartbreak among Drifters fans. The mystery deepens when you consider how little the music industry seemed to care. Rudy's replacement stepped in, and the hits kept coming. But for those who loved his voice, the unanswered questions linger. Why did Rudy Lewis have to go, and why does nobody seem to know the real story? Meek. Joe Meek was pop music's mad scientist, spinning out wild, futuristic sounds in a tiny London flat. He gave the world Telstar, produced hits for the Tornadoes, and pioneered effects that changed the face of recording forever. But in 1967, Meek's brilliant, troubled story came to a bizarre and violent end. He was found dead, along with his landlady, both victims of gunshots in what police called a murder and suicide. But the real story of Joe Meek's last days is a maze of paranoia, fame, and possibly dangerous secrets. Meek was convinced he was being followed. He'd had run-ins with the law, blackmail threats, and was even rumored to be working on a tell-all that would expose powerful figures in the music world. The gun used in the incident had an unclear origin, and the official timeline has never quite added up. Was it a tragic breakdown, or did someone decide the eccentric genius knew too much? Meek's own tapes and diaries vanished for years, and even now, new rumors keep surfacing. The man who broke every rule in the studio died surrounded by mysteries as tangled as his music. Fans still ask, was Joe Meek simply haunted by demons, or did his enemies finally catch up to him? Bobby Hebb. If you know the song Sunny, you know Bobby Hebb's voice, hopeful, catchy, and unmistakable. But behind the sunshine, Bobby's real story had a stormy side. His rise to fame in the mid-60s was meteoric, but what followed was a long stretch of setbacks, strange disappearances, and an industry that seemed eager to forget him. Hebb's death in 2010 might seem recent, but his brush with mystery began much earlier. After his initial hits, Bobby all but vanished from the music scene. Rumors swirled. Some claimed he was battling secret illnesses. Others whispered about threats from shady business partners or jealous rivals. During the late 60s and early 70s, Bobby faced bouts of depression and reportedly went off the grid for months at a time, fueling all kinds of speculation. When he did pass away, the official word was illness, but fans who remembered his sudden vanishing acts couldn't help but wonder what had happened behind closed doors all those years. Was Bobby's fading from the spotlight his own choice, or was something darker keeping him away from the stage? For every answer, there seemed to be twice as many questions about Bobby Hebb's journey and his mysterious silences. Jesse Belvin. Jesse Belvin was the velvet-voiced crooner behind Good Night My Love, and his talent promised to break every boundary in R&B. But on a chilly night in 1960, Belvin's story screeched to a halt. He died in a car crash just hours after making history by performing for a desegregated audience in Little Rock, Arkansas. The official report blamed a drunk driver and bad luck, but that explanation never sat right with those who knew what Belvin faced. In the days before his death, Jesse and his wife received threats, ugly, violent warnings not to perform. Some witnesses later claimed they saw Belvin's tires slashed before he hit the road. His friends and fans have long believed his fatal crash wasn't random at all, but an act of hate designed to silence a rising star who dared to sing for everyone. No one was ever charged, and the paper trail disappeared as quickly as Belvin himself. Was it a tragic accident, or was something more sinister hiding behind the official version? Jesse Belvin's death remains a haunting echo from an era when music could be as dangerous as it was uplifting. One thing's certain: the mystery around his passing hasn't faded with time. David Box. David Box never set out to become a legend of rock's darkest folklore, but fate had other plans. As the man chosen to fill Buddy Holly's shoes in the Crickets after Holly's own fatal crash, Box seemed almost cursed by association. Then, in 1964, at just 21 years old, Box died in a plane crash eerily similar to the one that took Holly's life. The official story chalked it up to pilot error, a bad night, and bad weather. But the coincidence is so strong it almost begs for suspicion. Some say Box had expressed worries about flying. Others claim the plane was in poor shape and never should have left the runway. More than one fan has pointed out the strange pattern of fatal accidents among rock's early icons, whispering about an industry that chews up and spits out talent without mercy. With his dreams cut short and his story echoing one of music's most famous tragedies, David Box is remembered as a footnote in rock history. Yet for those who look a little closer, his death is one more cold case in a decade riddled with unanswered questions and eerie connections. Sometimes, lightning really does strike twice. Elvis Presley. He was the king, the name that defined an era, the icon who made the world swoon. But Elvis Presley's death in 1977 left almost as many questions as his life did hit records. By the late 1960s, Elvis was locked in a cycle of comebacks and come-downs, surrounded by an army of hangers-on, strange doctors, and rumors that never stopped swirling. Officially, Elvis died from heart failure, but the details are a tangled mess. Toxicology reports suggested a stew of prescription drugs. Fans have speculated about everything from secret illnesses to deliberate medical negligence, and even theories that the king faked his own death to escape the Goldfish Bowl of fame. For years, sightings and wild stories kept tabloids busy and conspiracy theorists awake at night. His Memphis mansion, Graceland, became a place of pilgrimage for those still searching for answers. Was Elvis's decline inevitable? A slow-motion crash brought on by fame's harsh spotlight? Or did those entrusted with his care push him over the edge in pursuit of profit and control? The only certainty is that Elvis's final days are as shrouded in mystery as any legend, proof that sometimes not even a king can control his own story. Bobby Darin. Bobby Darin lived fast, sang faster, and left fans gasping for air. The man behind Mac the Knife was a musical chameleon, crooner, rocker, actor who packed a lifetime into less than 4 decades. But in 1973, after checking into the hospital for what was supposed to be a routine heart operation, Darin died unexpectedly at just 37. The official cause was post-surgical complications, but rumors and suspicions followed Bobby to the grave. Some claimed doctors took unnecessary risks, while others whispered about bad blood behind the scenes, contract disputes, jealous rivals, even hints of a cover-up. There's no solid proof of anything, but the way Darin's career and health were managed during his last years has been questioned by those who loved him most. Fans still debate whether Bobby Darin's death was a case of medical mishap or something more tangled. Did the pressure to stay in the limelight push him past his limits, or did those responsible for his care drop the ball when it mattered most? What's not up for debate? The world lost a true original, and the questions around his final curtain call have yet to find a satisfying answer. 15. Paul Williams. Paul Williams was the soulful voice behind the Temptations' most unforgettable harmonies, a founding member whose smooth moves and velvet vocals helped shape Motown's golden age. By the early 1970s, though, Williams was battling health issues, depression, and mounting industry pressures. In 1973, he was found dead in a Detroit alleyway, a single gunshot wound ending his story at just 34. The official line was that Williams had taken his own life, But for those who knew him, and for legions of Temptations fans, that version has always felt incomplete. Friends pointed out he'd been upbeat days before, making big plans for a comeback. His wife questioned the scene's details, and some close to the group believed Paul was the target of something more sinister. The music world can be an unforgiving place, especially when money and fame are on the line. Was Williams's death a case of personal tragedy, or did someone have a reason to silence a star who knew too much? With evidence lost and the trail long cold, we may never know the full truth. But the suspicion remains, and for every Temptations fan, the mystery lingers in every soaring chorus. And there you have it. The 60s gave us unforgettable music, but also a gallery of mysteries that refuse to fade away. Did these legends fall to fate, or was something darker lurking behind the spotlight? Maybe the truth is still out there, just waiting for someone to finally connect the dots. What do you think really happened to these lost stars? Drop your theories in the comments, hit that subscribe, and keep questioning everything, because the music never truly dies.